To follow along with the written version of this pattern and download the interactive PDFs, use the links on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/gold. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video we're going to be making these itsy bitsy leprechauns. We're also going to be learning how to make a little cauldron and how to make some gold coins for your cauldron. This is part of my Minigurumi series where I try to design patterns in less than 100 stitches with no sewing. You do have to embroider on a little bit, but there's actually no sewing, so it's all made in one piece, and I'm really proud of that. If you want to find more of my Minigurumi collections, like our little gnomes, our goblins, probably my favorite ones, or our Minigurumi marine life patterns, we got little skulls, we got little holiday patterns. There's a whole bunch of them, and you can find them all at minigurumi.com. For this pattern though, we're going to be making our little tiny leprechauns, and there's a few things I want to go over before we get started. The first is that this pattern is not really super beginner friendly. It is not too difficult because it's so tiny to make, but if this is your first time crocheting, I highly suggest starting with a different pattern, maybe our whale pattern. We have a giant strawberry pattern. We have a whole bunch of beginner patterns, including a series that'll teach you how to crochet for complete beginners called Crocheting 101. Links for that and everything I'm talking about in this pattern are in the description down below. You can find the 101 series at crocheting101.com. If you need extra help, check out the comments down below. Please leave me a comment if you got any questions. You can check out the Discord channel, or you can join me in our live crochet alongs that I do every week, where I can show you how to do specific parts of this problem that you might have problems with. If you want to join those live crochet alongs, just like down below, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss it when we come out with live crochet alongs. There's a left and a right-handed version of this video available. Make sure to watch the one that works best for you, and time code so you can quickly jump around in this pattern, jump straight to the cauldron or to the little coins or wherever you want to. Links for all that are in the description down below. All right, the last thing I want to go through is all the materials that you're going to need. For this pattern, we're going to be using worsted weight yarn and 100% cotton. It's just my favorite kind of yarn to use for amigurumi, but you can use really any kind of yarn you want. In fact, if you make one of these with blanket yarn, please send me a picture. I would absolutely love to see it. I want to find people that make these in blanket yarn. You can make them. I made one. They're pretty big. They're about this big with blanket yarn, and they're really quick and easier to make, honestly, than using worsted weight yarn. But I actually like these little tiny ones even more because I just think they're so cute and so mischievous. If you use worsted weight cotton yarn though, you want to use a crochet hook. I'm going to be using a size G 4mm crochet hook for this pattern, just my favorite kind of hook to use with worsted weight yarn. You'll need a darning needle. This is going to be simply to sew on the beard at the end and to sew it closed. Other than that, there's nothing to sew together, but it does help to have a crimped end darning needle just to get in and out of hard to reach stitches. Again, you don't need a crimped end, it just kind of helps a little bit. You'll need a pair of scissors for cutting stuff and some safety eyes. I'm going to be using 6mm safety eyes in this pattern because of the size of our piece, but if you're making bigger pieces, use bigger safety eyes. You also will need a small amount of stuffing if you want to. I like to stuff it with just some little tiny magnets as well so that they can attach to anything metal, but that's just a little perk. We'll talk about that later on in this pattern. All right, well, I think that's everything I want to go over. If you want to support this channel, please check out links in the description. We have a bunch of merch and kits in the store, including all the materials that you see today, and it's a great way to support our channel. This channel is fully supported by the community, so please consider supporting us down below. All right, but without further ado, let's get hooking. We're going to be starting by crocheting our leprechaun itself. Okay, so to start this pattern, we're going to be starting with the hat and then working down. Now, unfortunately, it's a little hard to see black on the recording. So what we're going to do is we're going to instead use a dark green for the hat, but normally I would probably use black instead. Now, what you want to start with is a magic loop. Now, if you've never made the magic loop before, here's a quick tutorial. This is just my favorite way to make the magic loop, but you can really make it however you'd like. What you want to do is have the yarn facing downwards towards the ground, and then pinch it with your thumb and middle finger like this. Wrap it around your index finger and middle finger 2 times. You want to create an X on the front towards you and 2 parallel lines on the back away from you. Oopsies. Let's do that again. And then take this other end and place it in between the ring and pinky finger. Now with the back of your hand facing you, you want to take your crochet hook, go under that first bar, and then hook onto the second one, pull that second one under the first, and loop it around like that to create a little loop at the end of your crochet hook. Now with the second bar, loop it onto the hook and pull it through the loop I like to twist it to line it up with the hole and scoop it to make sure it gets through. That's going to create a chain and lock everything in place, and you can pull it off your fingers. And that's how I like to make the magic loop. If you want to watch a video tutorial where I go into a little bit more detail about different kinds of magic loops and why I like this way more than others, you can check out the link linked up at the top. All right, for round 1 of our leprechaun, we want to start with 8 single crochets into the magic loop. Now for a single crochet, if you don't already know how to make one, we're going to be working into the stitch itself. We're going to take our crochet hook, go into the stitch. In this case, it's going to be the hole in our magic loop. We're going to pull yarn over with the end attached to the ball, pull it under the stitch, and then going over the stitch, we'll yarn over again and pull through 2 loops on the hook for a single crochet. That's going to be the main stitch we're going to work in this pattern. We're going to start round 1 by making 8 of those in the first round. So we're going to do, there's our first 1, and I'll just go 2, 3, I'll kind of speed it through, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, once you have your 8 single crochets, you can just grab the tail end here and pull it nice and tight. Pull it all the way tight like that. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 1. Now, because this pattern is worked in a round without spiraling, we're going to work in a round, we never need to turn around. We'll just keep spiraling around in a circle. Because this pattern is also really tiny, we're actually not going to use stitch markers for this tutorial as well. But don't worry, I'll explain what I'm doing as I go. Now for the next round, round 2, we're going to start by slip stitching into the very first stitch that you made. You can find your first stitch right here. Now for your slip stitch, you do want to work under both of these loops at the same time. So make sure you get under both loops of your first stitch, just for the slip stitch. The rest of these stitches are going to be worked under only the back loop, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm just going to place my crochet hook under that first one and then kind of wiggle my yarn until it goes over the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull it through the loop on the hook, or sorry, through the stitch, and then through the loop on the hook as well, like that. That's going to create a slip stitch. That's also actually going to be how we're making our coins, is just like that, but I'll get back to there later as well. Okay, now for round 2, we want to chain 1. And we're going to start into the same stitch you just slip stitched into, but now we're going to work only into the back loops of our stitches. So this one right here is going to be the same stitch we just worked into, but this time, instead of working under both loops like how we did before, we only want to work into the back loops of this stitch and all the rest of the stitches around. We're just going to do a single crochet into all of these back loops, the ones furthest away from us. So we're going to take our crochet hook. We're going to start in the same stitch we just slip stitched into. So right here, place it right where that back loop is, and I just kind of, again, wiggle my way into that first one. And we want to take our tail end from the very beginning and place it over our crochet hook as well. To ignore it, we want to crochet around this tail end as we work our second round. Now we can yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through the stitch like that. Now you have 2 loops on the hook. We can yarn over again and pull through those 2 to finish that first single crochet of round 2. We want to do 8 of those single crochets worked into the back loop only. So we're going to go into this next one right here. Here's the back loop of the next stitch. And don't forget to work around our tail end from the very beginning. And we'll do another single crochet like that. We're just going to keep doing that all the way around. Pretty easy. And you really do want to try to make sure to work around this tail end for this entire round, working into these back loops. Because not only is it going to help hide our tail end in, but it's also going to help keep the top of our hat pulled in a little bit so that it creates like a nice straight up and down look for the hat. All right, that's going to be our 8 single crochets. The last one right here looks like a single crochet, but that's actually the slip stitch we made in our in the beginning of this round. So we can actually ignore that. And we're going to continue on working into the first single crochet we made. But before I do that, I'm going to pull this tail in just a little bit. You see how it kind of pulled that hat in and makes it more of a top hat. Okay, actually after doing that as well, we can cut this tail end pretty short. We don't need it at all, and it's just going to get in our way. So we'll use that for stuffing later on and pull that little tail end off to the side. All right, for round 3 and 4, that's 2 rounds in a row, rounds 3 and 4, we just want to single crochet into each stitch around. The first stitch can be a little hard to find because of that slip stitch that we made in our last round, but it's actually going to be right here, that first single crochet that we made in round 2. We want to work into both loops for this round and all the rest of the stitches in rounds 3 and 4. So don't forget to work into both loops, and we're going to start into that first one made right here. There should be 8 single crochets per round. So I'm just going to take it one stitch at a time here, making sure to go under both loops, and I'm going to do 2 rounds of single crochets. I'll be back in just a moment. That's going to be our last single crochet of those 2 extra rounds of single crochets. And you can see there should be, here's the little bar that's going to show off the top of the hat. And here you should have 3 now rows after that bar. So if you are trying to count your stitches, that's the best way to know that you're doing a good job. Okay, next up we are on round 5. Round 5, we're going to create the brim of the hat that goes around the edge of it. We're going to start that by working into the front loops only now. So we worked into those back loops, as you know, from round 2, we worked into those back loops only. This round, we only want to work in the front loops, so the ones closest to us. That way we can create a nice brim that sticks out over the edge, and then we're going to use those unused back loops only right here in round 6 to create the start of the head. But first we want to work into these front loops to create the brim of the hat. In this round, we want to do the following stitches. We're going to do 3 half double crochets in a row. Don't worry, I'm about to show you how a half double crochet is made if you've never made one before. But we're going to do 3 half double crochets in a row and then a half double crochet increase, meaning 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. We'll then repeat that process one more time, so it's 2 repeats total, and that's going to bring your stitch count up from 8, which is what we currently have, up to 10 stitches around and create a nice clean brim at the top of our leprechaun's head. All right, so we're going to start into our first one right here. For a half double crochet, we yarn over the crochet hook before starting the stitch, and then we go into the stitch itself. Now, don't forget, we want to make sure we're only under that first front loop. So usually the way I like to do that is kind of poke up straight from the bottom like that and poke straight up like that. Then we yarn over, pull it through the stitch, then yarn over again, and you should have 3 loops on the hook. You can pull through all 3 loops, 1, 2, and 3 like that. All right, that's a half double crochet. We want to do 3 of those in a row before we do a half double crochet increase. So let's go into our next stitch. You can see how this last one is getting pulled open, which means that this one right here is going to be our next one. We yarned over before entering the stitch, then we yarn over again. Oops, there we go. Pull through the stitch, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, 1, 2, and 3. There's our second half double crochet. I'll go a little quicker now. Here's our third, 1, 2, and 3. And then we want a half double crochet increase, so 2 half double crochets in our next stitch, which is right here. So that's 1. And in the same stitch, you can see it really getting pulled open there. That's going to be the same stitch. And the reason you want to put 2 there is because it's going to add more stitches and make it go outwards more than down and out. Okay, so now we want to repeat that process again. 3 half double crochets in a row before a half double crochet increase. So there's 1. And hey, if you like this video, please like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss it when we come out with new videos like live crochet alongs. We're actually going to be doing a live crochet along this Friday for a bunch of these little leprechauns. I'm going to try to hide them at my mom's house, make as many as we can during a live stream. All right, this last one here is a half double crochet increase. So I did a first stitch there. We'll do another one in the same exact stitch like that. 1, 2, 3. All right. Next, we want to slip stitch into the very first stitch that we made, which is right here. So we go into both loops at the top of our first half double crochet that we made in our last round, and then we can yarn over, pull it through that stitch, and then through the loop on the hook like that. That's going to create a little slip stitch. Now we can cut the yarn. You actually don't need a very long end here. This is just going to be to create a hidden end before we continue on to the body. And once you cut the yarn, you can just pull it all the way through, and we're going to create a hidden end with our needle. So we're going to take our needle and thread that onto our end here. And then we're going to go into the back of the next stitch along the edge. So this was the last one that we made the slip stitch into. We want to go into the top of the stitch after that. So right here, pull through that stitch. And then we want to go back in where this end is coming out. So back into this stitch right here. And then we want to just hide it on the inside of a few stitches all the way down to those unused back loops only, all the way down to the base right there. And don't pull it too tight, but we do want to pull it in And our goal here is to mimic the top of these stitches along the border so you can't really tell where the end is. So I always like to pull the first half to kind of make that first thread a little tighter, and then pull the second half, and that'll kind of hide that end in there. All right, now that it's hidden in there pretty well, we can cut it pretty short. I don't want to cut it too short, but that should be good. And I'm just going to stuff that little tail end back into the top of the hat. And hey, that is going to be how to make a top hat just in general. So if you want to use this for a top hat, I think that makes a really cute looking top hat and could be great for amigurumi. But let's continue on and start working on the body of our leprechaun. So the first thing I want to do is I really want to tuck this open like that. And then we'll grab some beige yarn. Okay, with our beige yarn, we are going to pull a loop through the first unused back loop only from the border of our hat. The easiest way to find that first unused back loop only is actually to find the last one, which is going to be right here, and count your way back. There should be 8 of these. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is going to be right here. It kind of looks like this one is also an unused back loop only, but it's not. It's actually the beginning of the last round before that. So we want to actually go into this one. So it's easiest just to count backwards. Once you find that first one, which again is right there, we want to take our crochet hook and go under that stitch like that. We also want to really make sure that the brim of the hat is folded outwards. Okay, our crochet hook is in there. Let's create a loop. Oops, I have a little knot in my yarn here. But you want to just create a loop in your beige yarn. You can, or skin tone, whatever you want to use for your skin tone. You can make a slip knot, but I actually find it's easiest just to create a little loop at the end, yarn over the crochet hook, and then pull it through that unused back loop only. Then we're going to take this long end. First, this short end, I like to fold it over like that, and then take the long end, yarn over our crochet hook, and just pull it through to create a chain. You can also pull this other tail end a little tighter to tighten that up. All right, we're going to then work our next stitches into those unused back loops only from the brim of the hat. We're also going to try to work around this tail end just for the first stitch, just to really make sure this is locked into place. For our first stitch, the stitches are going to be as followed. We're going to start by getting to where we want to make the first ear. I will say, by the way, this round is maybe the most difficult, so take your sweet, sweet time on this round. We're going to start by doing 3 single crochets, and we're going to start in the same stitch that we created that chain. So we're going to take our crochet hook, go into that same exact stitch where that beige is coming through right here, place the tail end over our crochet hook, but then also yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through that stitch like that. And I like to pull a little tighter to kind of make both of these loops about the same length. Then we can yarn over and pull through both loops to do the first single crochet. So there's 1 single crochet. After working that first one, we can actually probably ignore that tail end. So I'm actually going to try to hide it just right into the top of the hat. We'll use it as stuffing later, and hopefully it doesn't come out too much. Okay, so there's our first single crochet. We want to do 3 of those in a row. Our next stitch is going to be right after it, right there, right here. Poke straight down and then straight up. That's the easiest way to get in it. Poke down and then up. Then we can yarn over, pull it through the loop, yarn over again, and pull through 2, 1, and 2. There's our second single crochet. Now here's our third, down, up. Make sure to not get any of those tail ends in there, and then do a single crochet. Okay, so there's our 3 single crochets. Next, we want to make our ear, which is going to be put in between 2 single crochets. So it's going to basically be an increase in this next stitch with an ear in between the increase. Let's start by doing our first single crochet in the next stitch right here. So it starts with just a single crochet in the next stitch. Like that. Now we want to make the ear itself. To do that, we're going to chain 3 times. We're going to chain 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. Now you want to work in, starting in the second chain from the hook, we want to work into the back loops of these chains. You can just work in the top loops of these chains. By the way, this right here would be the top loop of these chains, and you can work into those. I find it looks a little bit cleaner if you work into the back loops of the chains, however. To find the back loops, you flip this chain around, and you see these little spines right here? These are going to be the back loops of the chains. You want to skip the first one, which is going to be right here after the crochet hook, and start into our second one, which is going to be right there. And we want to make a slip stitch into the first back loop of the chain, and then a single crochet into the second back loop of the chain. To get into that back loop, take your crochet hook, line it up where that back loop is, and then use your nail of your dominant hand to kind of guide the yarn over the hook. I kind of like grab it on and then just wiggle my hook under that. And make sure you get under all the threads of that yarn. Once you're under that chain, we can yarn over, pull through the chain, and then through the loop on the hook to create a slip stitch. Let's get a little bit more yarn. All right, next stitch is going to be right after, right here. And once you get in that first one, it kind of pulls that second one up and it makes it a little easier to get into, like that. And we want to do a single crochet into that second one to finish that ear up. All right. Finally, we want to single crochet into the same stitch that we worked into on the base. So that's going to be right here. We want to work another single crochet. So get our crochet hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull it through the stitch, and then going over, yarn over again, and pull through 2, 1, and 2. All right, and that's going to be how to make that first ear. Next up, we want to do a single crochet into the next stitch over, which is going to be right here. We'll do just a one regular single crochet into that next unused back loop only. And then we want to do a mini bobble into the stitch after. Now, mini bobble stitch is basically a bobble stitch with only 3 repeats instead of a normal 4. So normally when you're making a bobble stitch, you repeat this process 4 times, but I'm only going to repeat it 3 times. To make a mini bobble, we're going to yarn over our crochet hook before entering the stitch, then enter the stitch. Again, this is going to be the next one right here. Then yarn over again onto the crochet hook, pull it through the stitch. It's kind of like we're starting a half double crochet there. And then we want to yarn over again and pull through just 2 of the 3 loops on the hook. 1 and 2. All right, that is the first step to a mini bobble stitch. We want to repeat that process 3 times total. So that would be the first repeat. Let's do a second repeat. Yarn over, go into the same exact stitch, which again, you can see it kind of pulling out right there, right here. Yarn over again and pull it through that stitch, then over the stitch, yarn over, and pull through just 2 of the 3 loops, 1 and 2. All right, one more of those repeats, yarn over. In the same exact stitch again, right here, yarn over again and pull through, then yarn over and pull through just 2, 1 and 2. All right, now you should have 4 loops on the hook. To finish the mini bobble up, we'll yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops by twisting to line up with the holes and really scooping it through like that. That's going to create our nose, which is going to be our mini bobble stitch. After making our mini bobble stitch, we can then work into the next stitch over right here and just do a single crochet into the next stitch. So 1 mini bobble, then 1 single crochet. And then into our very last stitch, which is right here, we're going to make another one of those ears. So we'll do that again by single crocheting into the stitch first, then doing our ear itself by chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3. We skip our first chain and work into that back bump of the second chain from the hook right here. We kind of guide it over with our nail and just do a slip stitch into that. And then into the next chain, again, back loop only, get our crochet hook in there and do a single crochet. All right, we'll finish this up by single crocheting one more time into that same stitch right here, which is gonna finish up round 6. And now we have the start of our head. It's kind of looking funky, but don't worry too much about that. We're gonna fix it all. Okay, next round, round 7, is actually going to be relatively easy. All we really need to do is single crochet into every stitch around. We want to skip the ears and make sure they're on the outside of our piece, which I'll show you how to do in just a moment. And the only other thing, you don't really have to do this, but when we get to the nose, it's a little bit cleaner if you work into the back loop of the nose, which is going to be right there. You don't really have to, but it does help a little bit. To find all these stitches, by the way, look for these V's along the border of your stitches. So we're just mostly doing single crochets though. The first one's going to be all the way over here. Skip this, that's our chain. So we don't want to get into that. We just want to get into the top 2 loops there of the first single crochet. And we'll just do a single crochet for each stitch. There's 1 and 2, and I'll show you how to get around this ear really easy. 3 and 4. To get to our first ear. Once you're at that first ear, I kind of like to do this. I pull the loop out a little bit, then I pull the ear to the side, and then I find the next stitch, which is going to be right here, right after the ear. So here's the ear, here's the next stitch. We'll get our crochet hook into that next stitch, and then yarn over and pull it through that stitch. Now you have one really long end and one really short end. I like to make sure that the ear is on the outside like this, and then pull tight so that both of those loops line up and are about the same length, and then the ear is on the outside. And then I finish the single crochet by yarning over and pulling through those 2 loops. 1, 2. All right, and then one more single crochet before we get to our nose right here. Now when you get to the nose, like I said, it's kind of best to work only into the back loop just because it makes it look a little bit cleaner. You don't really have to, but it does make it look a little cleaner. So instead of working under both loops, which look something like that, we want to work only into the back one. So we'll take our crochet hook, get into that back loop, and single crochet 1. Okay. And then we have 2 more single crochets before we get to our other ear, where we're going to do the same process. Like this. There we go. Pull our loop out, get our ear over into the next stitch, yarn over, pull it through the stitch, and then pull those 2 a little tighter. Now before I finish this stitch up and yarn over and pull through, we actually want to pull through with our next color, which is going to be our shirt color. In our case, we are going to be making our shirt color in this sage green, which is my lighter green color for our Club Crochet Amigurumi cotton yarn. So we're going to take our new color, place it between the 2 loops on the hook and the end attached to the ball, like this. Oops, like this. There we go. And we're going to switch over. The easiest way to do that is to hold down the new color with the your dominant index finger like this, and then place your non-dominant index finger between the 2 colors and flip the new color under the old one, and then yarn over with that new color, and then we'll pull that through to finish that last single crochet and successfully change to our green yarn. Okay, now we're on to round 8. Round 8 is where we're going to be making our arms and the top of our shirt. We're going to start by single crocheting 4 times and then make something called a bump. A bump is basically a super mini bobble. It's only 2 repeats of that bobble stitch repeat to make a bump. So we're going to start by single crocheting in the next stitch. I'm going to work around this beige yarn just for the first stitch, just to keep it locked in and out of our way. And then we can cut it nice and close, and we don't need that beige anymore. Okay, so again, we want to do 4 of these single crochets and then our arm. So we're going to do 1 right there. Here's 2, 3, and then 1 more will be right here for 4. Okay, then we want to make a bump. To make a bump, we're going to do that mini bobble, but only 2 repeats of it. So we yarn over, we'll go into this next stitch right here, make sure you're in both loops of that next stitch, and then yarn over and pull it through. Now we can yarn over and pull through just 2 of the loops, 1 and 2. Then repeat that same thing 1 more time. Yarn over into the same stitch right here, yarn over again and pull it through. Then yarn over and pull through just the 2 of these loops, 1 and 2. There we go. Now finish this up by yarning over. There should be 3 loops on the hook. We can just pull a loop through all 3 of them, and that'll finish the little arms right there. Make sure the bump is on the outside. All right, we're going to then do that repeat 1 more time, 4 single crochets, and then the other bump at the end of the round. So that's 4 single crochets. There'll be 1. Ooh, there we go. 2, 3, and 4. And then another bump in this last stitch. So yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull it through, then yarn over and pull through 2, 1, and 2. And repeat it again. Yarn over, same stitch, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, 1, and 2. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to finish that last bump and to finish up round, round 8. For round 9, it's actually pretty easy. We just need to do a single crochet into every stitch around. So we're going to go into our first one right here, and you want to be under both loops and just do 1 single crochet per stitch. There should be 10 stitches total still, so we're just going to keep doing a single crochet all the way around. And hey, again, if you haven't yet, please like this video. It does help this channel get noticed by YouTube and spreads our videos around so more people learn how to crochet with us. So I hope you like it. Also, please share a picture of your little leprechaun with us if you haven't already. I would love to see the leprechauns you make, and show me where you hide them and stuff in your for your friends and family. I think that's a really fun way to use these leprechauns. All right, this is our last single crochet right here. Before we finish that up, we do want to pull through with our pant color. In this case, our pant color is going to be the same as our hat, so our green yarn. So we'll grab our green yarn, and I'll place it between these two loops here, and we're going to flip over and switch over to our other yarn. There we go. And I'm just going to start the next round. The next round is going to start with single crochet. So I'm going to start the first stitch of our next round around this green and just do a single crochet. I'm only doing that for the first stitch, just so that all stays locked in, and then we're going to add the eyes. So I'm going to cut this yarn relatively short because we don't need it anymore. We'll just let it off to the side. And we're going to come back to this in just a moment. I'm going to pull the loop out. We're actually almost done crocheting our piece. And I always like to tweak the ears and twist them a little bit so that they're facing a little bit more forward. And then we want to add the eyes. Now the eyes, I'm going to be using 6mm eyes today. It's my favorite size eye to use with this yarn. If you use a larger yarn, use larger eyes. That's pretty much it. And there's two parts of the eyes. There's a front, which is going to be these black parts here, and then this back, which is going to be this little plastic part. I like to take the eye and go one stitch over from the nose, which is going to be right here for the first side. And then the second side, it looks like it would be right here, but I actually find that if you put it there, it's really close. You can see how it looks like kind of wonky because it's so close together. So it's actually one stitch over right here, like that. All right, and then we're just going to lock those into place. The easiest way to lock those into place is to flip it on the inside and just poke it out enough. Oops. Let me see that again. So that that little locking part right there is sticking on the outside. And then we'll take this locking mechanism, place it right over that end, and then I just kind of wiggle it into place and then poke the two sides like this and push it, and it'll lock into place. All right, so there's one eye. And then the other one is kind of hidden in yarn, so I'm going to move all that yarn away from it, just to make sure it's isolated. And then we're going to place that. Oops. Let's try that again. It's a little hard because it's so tiny. All right. Ah, there we go. Place that eye on there. And just lock it into place like that. All right. And that's going to be how to attach the eyes. I always like to kind of stuff them up a little bit and make sure that they are pointing straight more. And then we can also kind of unfurl the hat a little bit because it should be furled up because of the way that we did it so that we could reach the stitches better. So if you just unfurl it a little bit, you can see it becomes much more of a straight brim like that. Okay, let's continue on in our piece. We're actually almost done with our leprechaun. We're going to take our crochet hook, go into the next stitch, and we'll continue on now to round 10. Now round 10 is our last full round, and we're going to be, it's actually not too hard, especially after making the round with the arms. We want to do 5 single crochets. We already did our first one, so there's one. We want to do 5 single crochets and then a bump, and then 3 single crochets and then another bump right at the last stitch right here. And that's it. Should be 10 stitches total. So there's 1. We want 5 before our first leg, which again is just a bump, exactly how you made the arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go. A little bit more yarn. And now we want to do a bump in the next stitch. So we yarn over and go into this next stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2, and then repeat that again. Yarn over, same stitch, pull through 2, 1, and 2. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. There's our leg. Now we want 3 single crochets before our second leg. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And then one more bump right here for our second leg, 2 stitches at a time. There we go. Then yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops to finish up that last leg. That's going to be the end of round 10. Now for round 11, there's actually only 3 stitches in round 11, and that's just going to be to close it up. After that, we're going to cut early and pull closed. What we want to do is we want to basically decrease 1, single crochet 1, and then decrease 1. We're going to be using an invisible decrease in this pattern. It's my favorite way to decrease for amigurumi. And how you invisible decrease is you take your crochet hook and go under the front loop only of the next stitch right here. And then the next front loop only as well. I kind of flip my crochet hook around to line up with the next front loop and go through that. So now we're under 2 front loops at the same time. Then we can yarn over and pull it through those 2 front loops with a scoop, a twist, and a scoop, like that. Now once you've pulled through those 2 front loops, we can yarn over again and pull through the 2 loops on the hook to finish the invisible decrease. That's just my favorite way to decrease. If you want to check out a video tutorial, I'll link it up here. It'll go through all the different ways I like to decrease and why I like certain ways more than others. After doing that first invisible decrease, we want to single crochet into the next stitch, which is right here. You can work into both loops for that next stitch. Then finally, we want to do one more invisible decrease, front loop only, and then front loop only, and then we single crochet into that like this. If I can. My crochet hook, let me try that again. Front loop, there we go. It was stuck on something, I don't know what, and pull through. All right, and that's going to be the end of our crocheting, so we can pull a loop out. We don't actually need too long of an end. That's probably fine. This is just going to be for sewing it closed, and we'll pull it all the way through. Oops, sorry, Mr. Camera. All right. Next up, we want to stuff our character up a little bit. Don't worry about his hat. I know his hat looks a little wonky right now, but don't worry about it too much. We're just going to use, I'm going to start by using a bunch of these little yarn ends because it's a little bit better to stuff them up early with these yarn ends. Roll them up into a little ball. And then I'm just going to stuff it right into the top of it. I probably should have just done a few at a time, but that's all right. You really want to make sure it gets all the way to the top too. I'm going to use a little stick for this just to help guide the stuffing in and over the eyes. That's what's really important here. Is you really want to make sure it gets over the eyes, because if you only stuff under the eyes end up kind of bulging in a weird way. There, you kind of see how it's bulging right now. I'm just going to tuck that in a little bit. And again, I'm not going to worry about the brim of the hat just yet until later, because we're going to, it's actually nice that it's up like this because we need to get away from the face for sewing on the beard. Okay, that's about enough of our little stuffing there. Let's add just a tiny bit of small stuffing, like, you know, normal stuffing as well. Just a little bit of that. And then the last thing that I like to do, and this is absolutely optional, is I really like to stuff it with mini magnets. I like to use these super strong neodymium magnets for this. These are like extra strong magnets. I like to use 3 of them in a row. I'll place it right on the bottom of it, and this is going to help him stay upright on different metal surfaces, so they're really easy to hide all around the house. We'll thread this end on a needle once those magnets are stuffed in there. And this is how I like to sew it closed. I'm going to take my needle. We're going to go into the front loops only of all the stitches around. We're going to start into the top of this first front loop like this, and then out through the back of the next front loop like that. You kind of go into both of them at the same time, and then you pull the yarn through. And we're going to do that for every stitch. So up through the next, up through the next, out through the second, like that. Should only have to do this like 4 times, I think. Up through the next, and out through the second. And then one last one, up and out like that. Once you've pulled through all those front loops, you can hold tight and then pull it, and it'll close up the bottom. We're going to take our needle, go straight back into the bottom, and then out somewhere along the back, probably around where the green line is. And then we can just pull it nice and tight. It'll pull that bottom tight a little bit more, pull the bottom in so it sits up a little bit better as well, and then we can cut it nice and close right at the base. All right, here we go. So now we technically have our leprechaun done. All we need to do is it would be nice to add a little beard. So we're gonna grab some orange yarn for that. And you don't actually need a lot of orange yarn. I would say maybe about like 2 to 3 feet folded in half. And then I'm gonna cut with it folded. See how I have the 2 ends right here? I'm gonna cut that like that. We're going to hold onto those two ends and just pull it all the way out so we have a perfectly in half loop. And then we're going to thread this onto the needle like that. All right, now to add the beard, there's like a very specific way that I like to sew on this beard, or embroider on the beard is what I should say. It's kind of confusing, but it's just my favorite way to do it. So we're going to start by coming out right next to where that eye is, but we want to start by coming in through the back of our piece. So I'm going to start pretty much in the back of the middle right here, and we're going to come out right there like that, right on the other side of where that eye is. Pull it all the way out, just leaving, sometimes you got to kind of like wiggle and twist, but just take your time. Don't rip it out. Just take it nice and slow. And you want to leave 2 little threads on the back here. That's going to be for double knotting to the end. All right, now what we want to do is we want to pull it over and go in through the center of where these legs are in the middle of this green. So right here, and then up through the bottom of the eye right here. We're going to go in through all these stitches under the mouth like that. And then we're going to pull it all the way down back into the same stitch that we just worked into to create our beard. So there's our first one. It's going to create a little bit of a sideburn and start of a beard. And then we're going to go into the same stitch right here and then up through the next stitch over on the face right here. All right, pull it tighter, pull it tighter. You really want to make sure all that's pulled in. Go into the same stitch right here, then up through the next stitch over right there. Okay, into the same stitch, out through the next stitch on the face, the last one under the eye. You really want to wiggle it. Looks like I ended up pulling through 2 strands of yarn, but don't worry too much about that. There we go. Pull down into the middle here. Now, if you want to fill up, see the center leaves this kind of like little V. If you want to fill that in, you don't have to do this. In fact, it can be a little difficult, but the best way to do it is to go in between this stitch, like, kind of like, it's easiest to wiggle. There we go. Like right there. It can be a little hard to get that needle through that though. Sometimes I like to do this to make a gap a little bit first and then pull it up, and then I kind of wiggle the needle through, because that stitch can be really hard to get the needle through. But if you wiggle it really well like that, it makes it a lot easier. Okay. But again, you don't really need to do that one. It's just to add a little bit of extra. All right, the last place we want to come out with the needle is right here next to the eye, right on the outside of the ear right there, so it can match this side. So right there is where we want to come out with our needle. So we're going to go into the bottom here and try to come out right, a little bit over a little more, right there like that. This is another one where the needle can have a difficult time coming out, so you really want to create a gap. And then when you have it there, you just kind of wiggle your way through like that. Okay. And then the last thing you want to do is go straight down into the same stitch we've been working into, and then out on the back through where those 2 tail ends are. Make sure you go over the magnets, right like that. I'm going to go out through the same stitch, and that's just going to be so you can have something to double knot to. Now again, I'm going to wiggle my way through, so if it's really becoming difficult, just wiggle. Or if it's becoming extremely difficult, you can always use pliers. If it's like really fighting me, sometimes I do that, but that's getting really extra. All right, I'm going to pull those a little tighter. I really want to kind of make that beard look more beardy. It's pretty good though, I gotta say. I do kind of like that. And then we're just going to take these 2 ends on the back and double knot them. You can actually just really single knot them. In fact, most of the time I single knot them, but we'll double knot them here just for safety. But honestly, single knotting is totally fine too. We'll cut it nice and close right at the base there. And then the last thing you want to do is stuff this knot back into the piece. The easiest way to do that is take your scissors closed, place it right over that, and just kind of push it in like that. And it kind of hides it on the inside a little bit easier. What it also does though is it kind of pushes the body in like that. So I like to take a needle here, grab that and just kind of pull it back out to kind of clean it up a little bit. Twist our ears right, flip it around, look at our leprechaun. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. And let's go ahead and we'll stretch this hat out and poke it down like that to make sure that the brim is over, just over the eyes a little bit. All right, and there we go. We have a cute little leprechaun. Look at how cute he is. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. I'm going to completely take over my mom's house with these. I'm so excited. Okay, next up we want to make the pot of gold that we will have with our little leprechaun. For that, normally I would be using our black yarn here, but again, it's a little hard to see the black yarn, to see the stitches on our piece. So I'm going to be replacing it with a brown end here just to make it a little bit cleaner and a little clearer and easier to see. We're going to start in the very similar way as we did with the top of our leprechaun with a magic loop and then single crochets into the magic loop. So I'm going to start with just a simple magic loop like this. And we're going to start our cauldron with round 1 by single crocheting 6 times into the center of our magic loop. Pretty easy. Just go into the center and we just want 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to pull this relatively tight. Before we pull it all the way closed, we are going to use a stitch marker for this one because it's not as long of a piece. So it looks a little bit cleaner with just a simple stitch marker. And we're going to try, let's just use a little bit of our orange, place that right in the center there, and then pull it nice and tight around that stitch marker. We'll fold the stitch marker over. I'm going to cut it relatively short, about like this long is fine. That's just going to help us keep track of our ends. And sorry, let's make sure the yarn attached to the end is on the top here. We're going to take the stitch marker here, pull it just out a little bit more, and we're just going to fold it over, and we're going to use that line to know where the ends of the rounds are. For round 2 of our pot, we're going to do an increase in each stitch around. Now in this round, we're going to work into both loops. We're going to go into the first stitch right here, wiggle our crochet hook in there, and just like the top of our leprechaun, we want to work around this tail end, and we're going to do an increase in each one. So we're just going to yarn over, pull it through the stitch, do one single crochet, and then another one in the same stitch. So we're going to go follow that little V right there to find our way into that same stitch, yarn over and pull it through, then going over our stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. That's going to be our increase stitch, aka 2 single crochets into the same stitch. We want to do an increase into every stitch around. That's 6 stitches to work into, and if we're doing 2 single crochets per stitch, that's going to leave us at 12 stitches total by the end of round 2. So we're just going to put 2 into each one of these stitches, and it should end up at 12 stitches around. We actually are more than halfway done. I really hope you are enjoying this pattern. I think it's a really fun one. I'm really addicted to making these itsy bitsy things that are shockingly over designed, but really fun to make and pretty quick to make too. All right, that's going to be our last stitch and our increases all the way around. I'm going to cut our tail end here from the very beginning. You don't need it at all, so we'll just toss that to the side. We'll take our stitch marker here, and I'm just going to fold it right over and continue on to round 3. Round 3 is a little bit interesting, actually. We're going to do a single crochet into our first stitch and then an increase into our next. Then we're going to do a bobble stitch, which is one extra step from our mini bobble that we made for the nose of our leprechaun. So that's basically four double crochets put together. I'll show you how to do that when we get there. After that bobble stitch, we'll do an increase stitch right here. So 2 single crochets. And then we're going to repeat that process 3 times total. So 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 bobble, 1 increase. And we're going to keep doing that all the way around. So let's go ahead and do our first repeat, 1 single crochet into our first stitch, then an increase or 2 single crochets into our next, 1 and 2, then a single crochet after that right here. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong. 1 single crochet, 1 increase, then 1 bobble. For our bobble, we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch right here, yarn over, and pull it through the stitch for 3 loops on the hook. Then we're going to yarn over again and pull through just 2 of those loops, 1 and 2, and repeat that process 4 times. So 1 more time than we did for the nose. So there's our 1 repeat. There's our 2nd repeat. 3rd repeat, and then 1 more. Same stitch. 4th repeat. And then yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. Now you might find that this bobble stitch kind of pulls in like that. So it makes it indented. You don't want it that way. You want to actually poke it out like this. Okay, so make sure it's poked out. Then in the next stitch after that bobble, we want to do our last increase to finish up our repeat. So we'll go into the next stitch right here and do 2 single crochets for our increase. There's 1 and 2. Okay, and we want to repeat that process 3 times total. So 1 single crochet, 1 increase, 1 bobble, 1 increase. So I'll just keep going around, 1 single crochet, then 1 increase, and then our bobble. Yarn over into the stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. You can see once you get going here, it's a little easier. Pull through 2, 1 more time, pull through 2. All right, so 5 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through them all. And then 1 more increase right after it, right here. 1 and 2. All right, and I'll do this last repeat to get to the end of our round. I'm curious to hear what your favorite favorite Minigurumi pattern that I've come out with is. I've come out with a few of these Minigurumi patterns. I really like the Under the Sea collection, but oh my gosh, these gnomes and goblins and leprechauns are so cool. And yes, like I said, a little over designed, but I'm really, really proud of them. And I hope you like them. All right, that's gonna be the last increase. You now should have 18 stitches around and our 3 little legs. That's gonna be what keeps our pot held upright. Pull our stitch marker over and let's continue on now to round 4. For round 4, we're kind of back to normal. We're gonna do 2 single crochets and then an increase stitch. And we're gonna repeat that process 6 times total, which will bring our stitch count up from 18 up to 24 stitches around. So I'm gonna go into this next one right here after our stitch marker and do 1 single crochet. Looks like we got a little bit of our tail in there. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then an increase. So 2 in the same stitch, 1 and 2. And we'll repeat that process 6 times. So there's our first repeat, second repeat. Make sure to get under both loops of the bobble stitch right here at the top. 1, 2, and then our increase right here. 1 and 2. And that's going to be our second of 6 repeats. Okay, that's going to be our last stitch in round 4. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on now to round 5. For round 5, we're increasing up to 27 stitches around. So we're currently at 24. We want to get to 27. To do that, we're going to do 7 single crochets and then our increase and repeat that same process 3 times total. So not 6 times, but only 3 times. So it's 1, 2, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then our increase, so 2 in the same stitch. 1 and 2. All right, and then we're going to repeat that same thing 3 times in a row. So that's our first repeat. I'll continue on and do 2 more repeats of that to get to the end of our round with 27 stitches around. Okay, and this is our last stitch for 27 stitches around and the end of round 5. And now we want to continue on to round 6. And actually for the next 3 rounds, 6, 7, and 8, 3 rounds in a row, we just need to do a single crochet into every single stitch around. So that's 27 stitches around for 3 rounds. Just 1 single crochet per stitch for 3 rounds in a row. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 8, our 3 rounds of single crochets. You can see these 1, 2, 3. I stopped doing our stitch marker there so I could see where the end of the round was. Okay, now we can continue on to round 9. Round 9, we're going to start decreasing it down just one round. To do that, we're going to do 7 single crochets and then an invisible decrease 1. And then we'll repeat that process 3 times total. We did the invisible decrease a couple times in our leprechaun pattern, but I'll show you again when we get there. So let's start by doing 7 single crochets to get started. And you can tell this will just kind of repeat what we did before our single crochets, but instead we are decreasing now. And then we'll repeat this process 3 times total. Okay, sorry, that's 7 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our invisible decrease. Again, we want to do front loop only, and then another front loop only, and then do our single crochet. So we yarn over, twist and scoop, then yarn over again and pull through 2 like that. We can repeat that process 3 times total. And that's going to bring us down from 27 stitches down to 24 stitches. So I'll continue doing these repeats. I'm on my second repeat now, and I'll be back in just a sec. All right, that's going to be the end of round 9. You should have 24 stitches around. And for our very last round of our pot, we want to just slip stitch into both loops of all the stitches around. So we're going to go into this next stitch right here. Starting right here, yarn over, pull it through the stitch, and then through the loop on the hook. And that's it. We just want to do that for every single stitch around. And this is going to create a nice clean border at the edge of our pot. When we get to the end of this round, we're then going to cut the yarn and hide the end in. But let me go ahead and just continue doing this round of slip stitches. Try not to make sure your slip stitches are too tight, but you also definitely don't want them too loose. So somewhere nice and in between. The tighter you crochet these slip stitches, the smaller the brim of our pot is going to be. But you can see this is just a nice and easy repeat all the way around. We're actually 2/3 of the way there, so I'll just continue and finish this up. And hey, again, if you haven't yet, please consider liking this video down below. It really does help the channel a lot. And subscribe to the channel and all that other fun stuff. All right, that's going to be our last stitch, all of our slip stitches all the way around. You can see how it makes this nice little border to our piece. And to finish the pot up, we can cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end at all. That's just going to be to hide the end in, and we'll just pull it all the way through. Take our needle, and we're going to hide this end in a very similar manner as we did for the brim of our leprechaun. We thread it onto a needle. We'll go into the back of the the next stitch over. So this is the stitch we just worked into. So we'll go into the back of the next stitch right there. Pull through. You want it just tight enough so that this kind of lines up like that. And then go back into where this end is coming out, right like that. And then just hide it on the inside of just a few stitches. About that much looks good. Pull it through. You want to really try to mimic the edge. So we're just going to pull it just tight enough to mimic those stitches along the edge. And then we can cut it nice and close. It shouldn't come apart. Finally, last thing for the cauldron is we want to just take out these stitch markers that we made that helped us keep track of our progress. And there's our little pot. Looking pretty cute. Love it. Okay. Last thing that we need to make is some coins for the pot. Those are actually pretty simple. We're going to be using our yellow yarn for that. And honestly, I like to use gold coins, gold buttons instead, but we'll just make our coins really easily out of this gold yarn as well. So we want to start with a magic loop like we did before and make a little chain at the end of our magic loop to lock it into place. We'll pull it pretty tight. And for the coins, it's really easy. All you need to do is start by single crocheting 6 times into the magic loop, which is exactly what we did for the start of the cauldron. So just 6 single crochets into the magic loop to get started. And that's going to make a little tiny circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We can pull it nice and tight. And then find the first stitch that we made, which is going to be right there, right after that. Make sure you're under both loops. It's easiest just to like place the crochet hook over there and then just kind of wiggle your way into that stitch. And then we're going to do a slip stitch. Yarn over, pull it through, and then through the loop on the hook. And then we can cut the yarn. You do not need a very long end at all. We're just going to be using this to hide it in. And we'll pull it all the way out like that. And finally, we want to do that hidden end again with this. So we're going to thread these on the needle. We're going to hide all these tail ends before we cut it close. So we're going to do the same thing where we go into the back of the next stitch like that. and then into the stitch we just came out of, then into the back of just a few stitches here. That's probably good. And then you want to go into just a couple of stitches on the back of the actual coin itself instead of just the border. And just pull it through that, just so that nothing comes undone. And then we're going to do the same on this other tail end. We're going to thread this other tail end on our needle and just go through the back of, honestly, just like two or so stitches. This is just to hide these tail ends in, and so nothing comes apart. Like that. Pull it relatively tight. Okay, and then we can just cut these two ends nice and close. 1 and 2, and we have a cute little coin to add to our pot of gold. So I like to make about, I mean, it depends. Usually, actually, I like to stuff this mostly. So we'll go ahead, I'm just going to stuff it with, you can use your extra yarn, but we'll just take a little bit of our stuffing here, and just this way we can create a nice little base and we don't have to worry about making too many of these coins. And then you could just place the coins on top so that they kind of look like it fills in. The other option, instead of crocheting your coins, is you can use gold coins. And I actually have this little bit of buttons here that I really like to use because I think they're really cute. And just toss those in there. And it's a lot easier than crocheting a bunch of coins. And it looks a little bit cuter and more correct for crochet. Plus, they're really pretty. So I just buy these buttons online for different projects. And they're perfect for adding coins to a pot of gold or to a treasure chest. And we could, of course, use this one as well. We'll put that one right on top. And there we go. Now we have a cute little leprechaun and his pot of gold. Thank you so much for crocheting this pattern along with me. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it. And I love these Minigurumi designs. I am so obsessed with this challenge. I think it's so cool. And if you want to find more of my Minigurumi patterns, check out the link in the description or at minigurumi.com. My favorite is probably this little tiny goblin that is either out now or coming out very soon. I call it a goblin because it's like a baby goblin, and they're so cute and I'm really obsessed with them. We also have a bunch of more holiday themed patterns, including a shamrock tutorial on the website and a whole bunch of other ones. You can find them all at clubcrochet.com. If you want to get a membership, you get access to my entire library of tutorials. You can even get a free trial, see if it's something you're interested in, and is probably the best way to support us. If you want to support this for free though, please don't forget to like this video down below, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss it when we come out with new live streams, which we're going to be doing one for this little tiny leprechaun later this week. So make sure to like and subscribe it down below for that. Okay, well, without further ado, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments. Pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and yeah, see you in the next one. Oh, goodbye. Goodbye, my little friends. So long.